Good morning, everybody. Ori Spado here, the accidental gangster, with Stories with Ori. Today, I got the author of Dancing with the Devil, Luis Diaz, undercover DEA agent. He's responsible for bringing down one of the biggest drug dealers in New York City, the infamous Nicky Barnes. Good morning, Luis. How are you? How
Good
you
morning,
doing
Ori.
today?
All right, thank you.
You know, Luis, you and I have known each other for a long time.
Yes,
You
sir.
remember the first time we ever met?
Yes, sir.
Frankie's Restaurant.
Yes, sir.
You remember that? I
Yes,
was
it was a
with
great
my
meal on you.
partner, John DeMatti. We used to hold court there on Tuesday nights. There was a
Absolutely,
little
yes.
commotion. And I looked up and I seen you and this really tall guy, both dressed up. And then I saw the Colts come out and I saw the badges and the guns.
Yeah, we almost went to it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But the next time we met was for a Christmas party at our friend Ed Lauder's house.
God
Right?
rest his soul.
And that's when we found out that we have a mutual friend, Duke Schrader from the NYPD.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Louis, you lived a heck of a life. All right, would you begin by telling some people you were born in New York City, okay, and how you became a DEA agent, and tell us how you got undercover to bring Nicky and other people down?
Well, you got a couple of days, Ori?
Huh?
You got a couple of days?
Couple what?
A couple of days.
Yeah. No, we got about 35 minutes. All right.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, since I was a young boy, I always had an adventurous spirit, and my neighborhood was filled with a lot of gangsters, but they were okay guys, including Joe Gallo, who I met and who liked me as a kid. Um, So as a kid, I was kind of taken back with the gangsters. I kind of liked them, but they weren't nefarious people, at least not to us, not to the neighborhood kids. But anyway, I went on. My father was pretty hard with me, kind of heavy-handed. So when I hit the street, nobody could take me on because I wasn't afraid of pain. Uh, then I went to school. I got in trouble all the time, but I was able to graduate with honors. I went to St. Francis College. And then my friend Nicky Esteville told me, "Listen, let's join the Army or Marines. We got to fight for this country in Vietnam." So I got really riled up, and me and Nicky went down to the Marine recruiting station, and Nicky got accepted, but I didn't because I was in Navy ROTC program, so they wouldn't accept me. However, the chief gunny that was there said, "Kid, don't worry about it. Go down to the draft board and push your draft." Okay, so I did that. I went to the draft board and pushed my draft. I said, "Okay, we'll take care of you. You'll be in the army soon enough." Okay, so I went there. I got drafted, and then I went through the army for 2 years. And when I got out, I wanted to be a cop. Nicky and me wanted to be a cop. So me and Nicky took the test. I passed with colors, flying colors. Nicky did also, and then came the time for the physical. So the physical came out, and it was 5'8" at that time, and I came in at 5'7". So the guy said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Lou, what we can't do." I said, "What? You gonna? Can I curse? You gonna hurt me for
You
an
had to
inch?
be
You gonna?
5'8" and you were
Yeah,
5'7"?
yes, yes, yes. And you're gonna You're gonna interfere with my career because of 1 fucking inch? Come on, what are you talking about? You talk about prejudice. If this is not the worst kind of prejudice in the world, I don't know what else is. Okay. Anyway, he told me, "Listen, kid, what you can do is go join the feds. They don't have a height requirement, so I'll go ahead and do it." So anyway, I found out that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms didn't have a height requirement. So anyway, at the same time, I went back to college and I got my associate's degree. And then, as faith would have it, on the corner of my neighborhood was this guy, Joe Blaze, very colorful guy. Every time I passed him, he used to wave, "Hey, kid, how you doing?" I was wheeling my son, who was maybe about 2 or 3 at that time. So why don't you come over? Come on, I'll talk to you. I want to talk to you about something. Okay, Joe, I'll be there. So I took Louis into my house and I went over his house. And when I went in, wow, I was taken back. He had awards, all kind of plaques. And I said, Joe, what is this? He said, well, I'm a senior agent with ATF. And I was on President Nixon's protective detail. I was in charge of President Nixon's protective detail. I said, holy shit, man. I tell you, I'm taken back. I always wanted to be a Treasury agent. I remember seeing the Untouchables with Elliot Ness. I was always taken back with that. And I got to see what I got to do. He said, don't worry about it. Get your education. And when you're ready, I'll put you in. I'll submit your name. And it so happened that when it went down like that, I got my degree. I went with him to see somebody from Washington, and they took me on. And one of the reasons why they took me on is because Joe told them, this kid is a street kid. He knows the street. He knows these guys, but he's also got some polish. He went to school, but he's not a street guy, but he is a street guy. You know what I mean? So in no time at all, they hired me on. And that was how I got on.
Beautiful. Nicky Barnes, will you tell everybody who Nicky Barnes is? Because, we talk to a lot of young people who are watching this here, and they really don't know who Nicky Barnes was. They don't know how big this guy was, and I think he was probably the biggest drug dealer in New York back then at the time, was he not?
Yes, he was. As a matter of fact, he also was divorced. He had to do with Frank Lucas. He was bigger than Frank Lucas. Matter of fact, Frank Lucas took orders from him from time to time because Nicky controlled Harlem and all of New York, and he went as far out by the Atlantic seaboard. So Nicky was a notorious, as big as they come, and he had a big organization that took care of the drug dealing all over the country. He was big. When I tell you he was big, no, he was big guy.
How much a day was Nicky Barnes doing?
Wow. Not only Nicky, but his organization. I'd say he was doing at least in New York, for that matter, maybe 50 kilos a day. That's big.
That's big. 50 kilo. That was worth, back in those days, what, 40,000 a kilo?
Yes, sir, it was.
So that's $2 million a day.
Yes, sir.
According to my calculation.
Yeah.
So Louis, undercover, you became a DEA agent. Was Nicky Barnes the first? How many times did you go undercover? Did you spend most of your career undercover? Because it's got to be a hell of an experience.
I spent 27 years undercover. When not all together, 6 months here, 6 months there, 8 months here, on different cases. Most of them were my own. Most of my career I spent undercover, and then I had some other cases, but undercover was 27 years. As a matter of fact, without blowing my own horn, I was one of the most prolific undercover agents in the North Atlantic region. I was very good at what I was, and I was looked to make cases, and I got a lot of respect from the Bureau.
Now, were all your cases in New York?
Yes, most of them, yes.
Most of them. Well, I got to ask the question. You've gone undercover most of your life, several different times. Even New York, although it's a very large city, still nobody detected it. Then I understand that there was a contract on your life at one time.
Yes, there was.
And will you explain how that happened and how that contract got lifted?
Okay. Well, I was dealing with a guy on the Lower East Side, and we were preparing to do a multi-kilo deal heroin. And for some reason, the situation got messed up. It was hinky. It was like suspecting me of being an agent. So at that time, I wanted to clear the water, clear the table. I had a friend of mine, Perky, who was with Joe Gallo and his gang. But I knew him as a kid. Perky used to like me. He used to pass the corner. There used to be a corner in those days in Brooklyn, it was a candy store or a candy store usually, and we used to hang out there. So every time Perky passed by and he saw me, he would rustle my hair, give me a couple of punches, and we'd go on. So one day he says to me, "Hey Lou, you're a pretty tough kid. I want to take you to see Joe Gallo." Joe Gallo, yeah, come on, come with me. I said, whoa. So he took me to see Joe Gallo, and Joe Gallo was impressed with me. And I told him what I needed. I needed baseball equipment and all kind of things like that. And Joe gave me a lot of money, and I used that money to buy baseball bats, balls, all that sort of thing. And that was my relationship with Joe Gallo at the time. And then after that, my father caught wind of what I was doing, and I told him what I was doing. He said, "No, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. No way." So I said, "Okay," because he would have took me on, my father, you know. So we left that at that, and I went on with my life. But I always had something to do with him. Like I said, I had a romanticized version of what my life was at that time. Let me take a look at my boy. 1 second. So basically, that was that. In answer to your question, I don't know if I got the whole answer
Yeah.
to your question.
Well, Joey Gale, Joey Gale happened to be very instrumental in the way that Nicky Barnes ran his organization. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. And the way that went down is that Nicky was sentenced, I think it was Elmira or Greenhaven, and Joe Gallo was doing time there. So while Nicky was there, Joe Gallo took a liking to him. He took him under his wing. But he told Nicky, "Let me tell you something. I like you, and I'm going to help you with your trade, but you got to stop being black." But he used another word for it because you're going to get jammed up with that way of being. So he taught Nicky how they would do business, what to look for. He also taught them what the feds were looking for when he worked undercover. So Nicky, when he got out, he hooked up with a guy named Matty Madonna, and Matty Madonna was a major drug dealer for the mob. So they got hooked up together. Matty Madonna was offering and selling him drugs on a large scale. And besides that, Nicky got hooked up with a sergeant. Forget his name right now, but he was overseas. But he had a direct link with heroin from the underground, from the Vietnamese and Thailand, and all these people that were there at that time. And so from there, we went further. We got the deal with these other people, and we went forward. And eventually, Nicky went down. But Nicky was a prolific guy dealer, as big as they come. Like I said, Frank Lucas had nothing on Nicky, nothing.
Frank Lucas, really? But, Frank Lucas is the guy that everybody gives all the claim to fame for. But, getting undercover and getting to a guy like Nicky Barnes was not something that happened overnight. How did that happen? How did you get undercover into his organization to be able to get the information that you needed to bring him down? And didn't Nicky become an informant later on?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Well, in my case, I was lucky enough to have a tremendous informant who grew up with a kid who was a neighbor of Nicky and his family. And Nicky was, this boy Geronimo was willing to take me in. And that's how we started with Geronimo. So he took me to see various people. And one of them was Wally, who was Guy Fisher's brother. Guy Fisher was a right-hand man for Nicky Barnes. And eventually, Guy Fisher got locked up with $100,000 in the trunk of his car. They got him for dealing at that time, and he went away. So we were left with a guy named Wally Fisher, who was his brother. And through Wally, I met a lot of major guys in Nicky's organization. And basically, Ori, what I was doing, what we tried to do is to get everybody on a conspiracy. And conspiracy was a hell of a weapon against these guys. It was first made to get the mob. And basically, the conspiracy was if you had 2 or 3 guys looking to do a crime, and one guy got an instrument or did something for the furtherance of that conspiracy, they guys were guilty of a conspiracy and they were charged as such. For example, if two guys were looking to assassinate the president and one guy bought a gun, that's it. They're all in for the conspiracy. And that's what we were trying to do with Nikki. And we had a lot of situations where Nikki was mentioned, where I bought dope from Nikki's guys, and they were talking, and I was talking to Wally. Wally, who's this? Who's that? And we started to formulate and organize who these guys were, and it came back to Nikki. All these guys came back to Nikki. So eventually, I got to the main people that were behind Nikki, and eventually I started buying dope and having conversations with these people that led back to Nikki. So that's basically how we started, and eventually that's how we started, and that's how we ended.
What year was that there?
I would say that was like circa 1976, thereabouts, Ori.
And when did Nicky become an informant, and how much did he become an informant help the DEA?
Well, I'll tell you what, he was a major, major informant, a major wealth of information. Uh, and he was handled by a couple of major guys in the North Atlantic region, prosecutors, assistant United States attorneys. And there was one guy in particular that got to Nicky, and he twisted him, and he said he offered Nicky to release him before his time if he got good information on these people. And Nicky did so. He gave him a lot of his guys, a lot of other people that he knew, and eventually they gave him a reduced sentence for all the things that he did. There are a lot of major guys in that case because of Nicky's cooperation.
Okay, now, what did Paul Castellano have to do with Luis Diaz?
It's just another story. Well, I was dealing with a guy, a lot of Italian guys in my neighborhood.
Was Paul the boss? Was he the boss
of the Colombo family?
Of the Gambino family? The Gambino
family.
Okay. He was the boss of the Gambino family when he did you a big favor.
Say that again. I'm sorry. Would you repeat that?
This was before he got killed at Sparks Restaurant in New York.
That's correct.
All right?
Correct. That's correct.
And so anyway, he had to intercede because there was a contract on your life.
That's correct. That's correct. And the other thing, the reason why, they thought I was an informant. They thought I was an informant. Okay? So anyway, behind that, I had a friend that was associated with Joe Gallo. That was the guy that introduced me to Joe Gallo. His name was Perky. And I ran it down to Perky. Perky, these people think I'm a stool. Can we do something about that? He said, don't worry, kid, I'll take care of it. So he took me to see Joe. I walked into his place, and we talked. I said, Joe, listen to me. I'm not a stool. Matter of fact, I'm an Asian. I showed him my badge and credentials. He took them, and he waved them back and forth like De Niro did a Midnight Run. And from there on, I went forward with a case. And they let me alone. They dropped the case. They dropped the contract.
So, who put the contract on you again?
Joe, the actual Joe Gallo. Yes, sir.
But Joe Gallo was a Colombo guy.
Yes, sir.
Joe Profaci, actually. It was Joe Profaci back in those days.
It was
the Profaci family.
Matter of fact, that's what led to that's what led to The Godfather.
Yeah.
That war between them. That was the war between Joe Gallo and Profaci.
Right. Louis, we're living, you were a drug in the DEA during the times of heroin, the times of cocaine. But we live in a period of time now that every day on the news we're hearing about fentanyl. And exactly. I just heard our president say more people are dying of fentanyl than car accidents or anything else.
It's true. Yes.
And supposedly all the things that make fentanyl coming from China. What's your theory on fentanyl? Okay, why do people even take it? I never heard of that back in my days.
No, no, it's very new in the market. It's a potential drug. Matter of fact, it's 50% more potent than heroin. When a kid gets started, I think he died with one take. Uh, but anyway, when fentanyl came to forward, they tried to stop it and still trying to stop it. But there's a lot of people involved. They shouldn't be involved. They're taking it to another level. In other words, they're being protected by certain people, heavy people, back to the mob again. And it's still going on. We're trying to take them out, and eventually we will. But sooner or later, these guys are going down. I tell people when I go to seek talking engagement, and you know what? These guys are living their life, but sooner or later they're going to go down. No matter what they do, they're going to go down. So I used to tell the kids that, and basically that was it.
Well, Louis, we're running short over here of time this morning. And I want to thank you, and I want to, we're speaking to a younger crowd. What is some wisdom that you can give to our audience today?
Be straight. Be straight. Hold your own. Don't be taken by people who bullshit you. Don't use drugs at all. Don't, and if you can avoid marijuana, because marijuana is a step to other drugs, just keep it clean. Keep your eye on something that's more important. Stay forward. Keep your own ground, and don't take shit from nobody. Don't listen to your friends who want to get you involved. Be straight. Be yourself or be by yourself.
Louis, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on my show, Stories with Ori. Everybody, Luis Diaz, Dancing with the Devil. It's available on Amazon. Go and buy that book right now and learn all about this incredible man and my friend. Thank you, Louis. I appreciate it.